Dawn Brancheau. The name is synonymous with dedication, passion, and a lifelong love affair with the ocean. For Dawn, it wasn't just a job, it was a calling. From the moment she first laid eyes on an orca, a spark ignited within her, a fascination that would shape her entire life. Growing up in the Midwest, far from the crashing waves and salty air, Dawn was captivated by these majestic creatures, while other kids dreamed of being doctors or astronauts. Dawn dreamt of swimming alongside orcas, of understanding their complex social structures, of forging a bond that transcended the boundaries of species. Her bedroom walls weren't plastered with posters of pop stars. They were adorned with images of breaching whales, detailed diagrams of orca anatomy, and meticulously researched facts about their behavior. She devoured every book, every documentary, every piece of information she could find about these apex predators. It wasn't just a childhood infatuation. It was a deep-seated desire to connect with these intelligent and powerful animals. This passion drove her. It fueled her ambition. It led her to earn a degree in psychology and biology, always with the goal of working with orcas. And finally, that dream came true when she joined the team at SeaWorld Orlando. It was more than just a job offer. It was an opportunity to live out her lifelong dream, to work hands-on with the very creatures that had captivated her imagination for so long. But SeaWorld, for all its dazzling displays and conservation claims, has a complex and often troubling history. The story of SeaWorld's Orca program is one of ambition, innovation, and, some would argue, exploitation. What began as a simple marine park showcasing the wonders of the ocean soon evolved into a multi-billion-dollar entertainment empire, with orcas as its undisputed stars. The early days of orca capture were brutal. Wild orcas were rounded up, often torn from their families and transported to concrete tanks. These captures had a devastating impact on orca populations, disrupting their social structures and causing immense suffering. While SeaWorld claims to have ended wild captures in later years, the legacy of those early captures continues to cast a long shadow. The training methods used at SeaWorld have also come under scrutiny. While trainers often speak of positive reinforcement and building trust, critics argue that the highly choreographed performances rely on dominance and control. They point to the unnatural behaviors exhibited by orcas in captivity, the repetitive movements, the lack of social complexity as evidence of the psychological toll these animals endure. And then there's T. His name alone evokes a sense of unease, a chilling reminder of the potential consequences of keeping these powerful creatures in captivity. Tilikum, a massive bull orca weighing over 12,000 pounds, was captured off the coast of Iceland in 1983. He was just a calf, ripped away from his family pod and thrust into a world of concrete and performance. Life in captivity was undoubtedly difficult for Tilikum. He was often bullied by other orcas and forced to perform in shows that were far removed from his natural behaviors. The stress and confinement took a toll on his mental and physical health. But Tilikum's story is particularly tragic because he was linked to the deaths of 3 people. In 1991, while at Sealand of the Pacific, Tilikum and 2 other orcas were involved in the death of a trainer. In 1999, a man who had trespassed into SeaWorld Orlando after hours was found dead in Tilikum's pool. And then, of course, there's the tragic story we're here to discuss today. Despite his troubled past, Tilikum remained a valuable asset to SeaWorld. He was a star attraction, drawing crowds from around the world. And he was also a breeding machine, fathering many of the orcas currently held in captivity at SeaWorld parks. Experts had long warned about the potential dangers of keeping orcas in captivity, particularly males like Tilikum. They argued that the confined spaces, the unnatural social structures, and the constant demands of performance could lead to aggression and unpredictable behavior. Orcas are highly intelligent, social creatures. In the wild, they roam vast distances, hunting, playing, and forming complex social bonds with their families. They communicate through a sophisticated system of vocalizations, and they exhibit a range of emotions, including joy, grief, and anger. Confining these animals to concrete tanks, they argued, is akin to imprisoning a human being in a small room for their entire life. It deprives them of their natural instincts, their social connections, and their mental stimulation. And the consequences, they warned, could be devastating. Dawn was aware of these concerns. She had studied the research. She had spoken with experts. She knew that working with orcas was inherently risky, but she believed that she could build a relationship with these animals based on respect and trust. She believed that she could make a difference in their lives, even within the confines of captivity. She poured her heart and soul into her work. She spent countless hours training, observing, and interacting with the orcas. She learned their individual personalities, their quirks, their preferences. She developed a deep understanding of their behavior. Dawn was known for her patience, her compassion, and her unwavering dedication. She treated the orcas with respect and kindness, and they seemed to respond to her in kind. She believed in the power of positive reinforcement, and she strived to create a safe and enriching environment for the animals in her care. But even Dawn, with all her experience and expertise, couldn't fully escape the inherent dangers of working with captive orcas. The warnings were there, subtle at first, but growing more insistent over time. The unnatural environment, the psychological toll of captivity, the unpredictable nature of these powerful creatures, all of these factors combined to create a potentially volatile situation. A situation that, on one fateful day in February 2010, would erupt in tragedy. The dream was always running toward Dawn, and now the nightmare was chasing her in the other direction. February 24th, 2010. A day that began like any other at SeaWorld Orlando, quickly descending into unimaginable horror. The Dine with Shamu show was a crowd favorite, offering guests a unique experience to enjoy a meal while witnessing the majesty of killer whales up close. But beneath the surface of the shimmering water, a tragedy was brewing. Don Brancheau, a veteran trainer with over a decade of experience, was the star of the show. Her connection with the orcas, particularly Tilikum, was well known. But even the most experienced trainers can't predict the unpredictable. The moments leading up to the attack were, in retrospect, filled with subtle warning signs. The pre-show routine seemed normal enough. Dawn went through her usual preparations, carefully, checking her equipment and reviewing the performance sequence. She interacted with Tilikum, offering him the usual signals and encouragements. But something was different. Tilikum, normally responsive and engaged, appeared agitated. He was exhibiting subtle signs of stress, a quicker breathing rate, a more forceful tail slap against the water, and a general restlessness that was uncharacteristic. Dawn, ever the professional, remained calm and continued the routine. Perhaps she attributed Tilikum's behavior to the high energy of the crowd or the slightly off-schedule timing of the show. Maybe she felt that by maintaining her composure, she could redirect his focus. As the show began, the tension was almost imperceptible. Tilikum performed his initial tricks with practiced precision, leaping and splashing on cue. The audience cheered, oblivious to the underlying unease. But as the routine progressed, the subtle warning signs became more pronounced. Tilikum missed a cue. He hesitated during a synchronized swim. He responded sluggishly to Dawn's hand. Signals. Several eyewitnesses later reported that Tilikum seemed increasingly distracted, his eyes darting around the stadium, his body tense. He was exhibiting behaviors that went against his normal response patterns. Trainers watching from the sidelines noticed the change too, a shift in Tilikum's demeanor that set them on edge. It was as if something had changed. The pivotal moment arrived during a familiar maneuver. The hair toss. Dawn was lying on her stomach at the edge of the pool, interacting with Tilikum as he floated in front of her. She would wet her hair and then turn and gesture to the audience. It was a playful, intimate interaction that showcased the bond between trainer and whale. But as Dawn leaned forward, Tilikum seized the opportunity. In a swift, sudden movement, he grabbed Dawn's ponytail in his jaws. What happened next unfolded. In a blur of horror, he pulled her into the water. The initial reaction from the audience was disbelief. Some thought it was a planned part of the show, an unexpected twist. But the laughter quickly turned to gasps as the reality of the situation became clear. Dawn was struggling, desperately trying to free herself from Tilikum's grip. Underwater, a terrifying battle ensued. Tilikum, a 12,000-pound apex predator, had complete control. Dawn, a skilled and experienced trainer, was fighting for her life. She kicked, punched, and clawed, trying to break free, but Tilikum's hold was relentless. Trainers on the poolside immediately initiated emergency protocols. Shouts pierced the air as they scrambled to deploy safety nets and underwater alarms. But Tilikum ignored the distractions. He held Dawn beneath the surface, thrashing her body. Violently, the water turned red. Witnesses described the unimaginable horror unfolding before their eyes. They saw Tilikum repeatedly submerge Dawn, dragging her deeper and deeper into the pool. They saw him ram her against the walls of the tank, the force of the impact causing her body to contort at unnatural angles. Every agonizing second felt like an eternity. Rescue attempts were hampered by Tilikum's size and power. He seemed determined to keep Dawn submerged, to prevent her from surfacing for air. The scene was chaotic, desperate, and utterly terrifying. Minutes stretched on, each one diminishing the hope of a rescue. Finally, after what seemed like an age, Tilikum released Dawn. Her lifeless body floated to the surface. The silence that followed was deafening. Trainers rushed to pull Dawn from the water, their faces etched with shock and grief. Paramedics immediately began CPR, desperately trying to revive her. But it was too late. Dawn Brancheau was pronounced dead at the scene. The joy and wonder of the Dine with Shamu show had been replaced by unspeakable tragedy. The park fell silent. The attack lasted only a few minutes, but the repercussions would be felt for years to come. In those few minutes, a life was lost. A career was ended, and the future of SeaWorld was irrevocably altered. And it all began with a subtle shift, a barely perceptible change in Tilikum's behavior. A warning sign that was tragically overlooked until it was too late. Silence, a heavy, suffocating silence descended on SeaWorld in the wake of Dawn's death. A silence broken only by the hushed whispers of grief, the clicking of cameras, and the relentless churn of the ocean waves that seemed to mock the concrete confines of Tilikum's tank. The question hung in the air, thick and suffocating. How could this have happened? SeaWorld's initial response was carefully calibrated, a mix of grief and reassurance. The park closed temporarily, a gesture of respect, but also a necessary step to contain the crisis. Official statements expressed sorrow, vowed cooperation with investigators, and emphasized the company's commitment to safety. But beneath the carefully crafted words, a storm of internal panic was brewing. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, descended on SeaWorld like a swarm. Their investigation was meticulous, exhaustive, and, for SeaWorld, deeply unsettling. Every procedure, every policy, every training protocol was scrutinized. They interviewed trainers, reviewed incident reports, and pored over years of archived footage. They looked for failures, oversights, and any evidence of negligence. Adding to the pressure was the release of Dawn Brancheau's autopsy report. The details were graphic, horrifying, and impossible to ignore. The media seized on the information, painting a picture of a brutal attack, a struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. The report detailed the crushing force, the internal injuries, the devastating trauma that ultimately led to her death. It was a stark and brutal reminder of the raw power of these animals and the case-errant risks of interacting with them in captivity. Public outcry reached a fever pitch. Animal rights groups, already vocal critics of SeaWorld, found renewed energy and a global platform. Protests intensified, fueled by the graphic details of Dawn's death and the growing awareness of Tilikum's troubled history. The debate over orca captivity, previously relegated to the fringes of public discourse, moved squarely into the mainstream. The core question: should these magnificent creatures be confined to tanks for human entertainment? The arguments were fierce and passionate. SeaWorld defended its practices, arguing that its parks educated the public, supported conservation efforts, and provided a safe haven for animals that might not survive in the wild. Critics countered that captivity was inherently cruel, that it deprived orcas of their natural environment, social structures, and cognitive stimulation, leading to psychological distress and, in some cases, aggression. The political landscape began to shift. Lawmakers, facing mounting public pressure, introduced legislation aimed at tightening regulations on marine parks. The most significant change came in the form of an OSHA ruling that prohibited SeaWorld trainers from having close contact with orcas during performances. This effectively ended the Shamu shows as they were known, forcing SeaWorld to reevaluate its entire business model. The ruling was a landmark victory for animal rights activists, but it also dealt a significant blow to SeaWorld's bottom line. Attendance declined, revenue plummeted, and the company's stock price took a nosedive. The era of performing orcas was rapidly coming to an end. Amidst the turmoil, Dawn Brancheau's family sought to channel their grief into a positive force. They established the Dawn Brancheau Foundation, dedicated to supporting marine mammal research, funding animal welfare programs, and promoting responsible conservation efforts. The foundation became a beacon of hope, a testament to Dawn's passion and a lasting tribute to her life. The Dawn Brancheau Foundation awarded scholarships to aspiring marine biologists, funded research projects focused on orca behavior and conservation, and supported initiatives aimed at improving the welfare of captive animals. It became a powerful voice for change, advocating for stricter regulations, greater transparency, and a more humane approach to marine park practices. Dawn's legacy extends far beyond the walls of SeaWorld. Her death sparked a global conversation about the ethics of animal captivity, the responsibilities of marine parks, and the complex relationship between humans and the wild. It forced us to confront uncomfortable truths, to question long-held assumptions, and to reevaluate our role in the natural world. While SeaWorld has taken steps to phase out orca performances and invest in conservation efforts, the debate continues. The question of whether orcas should be held in captivity at all remains a subject of intense debate, and the future of marine parks is uncertain. But one thing is clear: Dawn Brancheau's death was not in vain. It served as a catalyst for change, inspiring a new generation of activists, scientists, and policymakers to advocate for a more ethical and sustainable future for marine life. Her passion, her dedication, and her unwavering commitment to the animals she loved continue to resonate, reminding us that even in the face of tragedy, hope can endure. Her name, now synonymous with both heartbreak and progress, is a constant reminder that the pursuit of knowledge and understanding must always be tempered with compassion and respect for all living creatures. The silence may have fallen that day, but Dawn's legacy still roars.